This uncharted cave, surrounded by mystery and rumors, intrigued two men to enter without a clear plan and equipment. Ignoring caution, one man decided to risk it all and take an unknown passage that turned a regular camping day into a terrifying nightmare. Here at the Faculty of Truth, brace yourself for the infamous story of a young determined man who chose to push beyond unmapped territory, crawling into darkness that squeezed around him. Battling between fear and hope, he struggled to take one breath after another, but luck turned out not to be on his side. On April 5, 1999, a youthful 21-year-old named Robert Kennedy from Muskogee, Oklahoma, set out on an overnight camping expedition near the limestone enclave of Hermit Cave on the eastern shore of Fort Gibson Lake, nestled in the heart of eastern Oklahoma. Accompanying him were two companions, his stepbrother, Richard Steeler Jr., and their mutual friend, Ben Keegley, hailing from Tulsa. Underneath the starry Oklahoma sky, the trio whiled away the night engaged in lively conversation, swapping tales that echoed the rich history and folklore surrounding the limestone caves of the region, particularly the mysterious Hermit Cave. Although a familiar name among locals, the cave remained shrouded in mystery, its labyrinthine passages largely uncharted, and its depths never fully mapped. Robert was familiar with the cave's widely known main passage, often considered by many as boring. Yet his curiosity was piqued by whispers of undocumented side passages rumored to lead to hidden wonders, perhaps even unveiling breathtaking gypsum formations. As they sat by the campfire, feeling its warmth and watching the flames flicker, a cold feeling crept over them, making them shiver before they fell asleep. In the early morning, the men took their time savoring breakfast before proceeding on their journey home as originally planned. But spurred by the captivating tales of the previous night's conversations about the cave, Robert proposed a detour to explore Hermit Cave, nestled next to their tents. Ben, enthusiastic about the idea, was unfortunately constrained by an early work shift, leaving the two remaining men in a tough spot. Their friend's absence threatened to breach the Golden Caving Rule, which emphasized the importance of never venturing into caves with fewer than two companions. This rule ensured that if one caver faces trouble, another could stay with them while the third goes for help. Despite the warning, the two men, clad in jeans and t-shirts and armed with only a single flashlight, disregarded the guideline and ventured into the dark mouth of Hermit Cave. The spacious entrance offered little resistance, allowing them to enter with ease. As they traversed the main passage, they marveled at the natural rock formations, despite the cave's slippery, damp, chilly, and dim conditions. On their return journey, Robert spotted one of the rumored side passages, its details shrouded in mystery due to its intricate layout and narrow confines. Driven by excitement, Robert felt compelled to explore the unknown. With a plan in place, Richard agreed to remain outside the cave, waiting patiently as Robert took the only light with him. Given the narrow crevice that only allowed one person to enter at a time, Kennedy assured his stepbrother that he would return promptly and avoid venturing too far into the unknown depths. Eventually, Robert took this path, which is around 150 feet long roller coaster trip with many turns and twists that are not easy to navigate. It takes a special technique to maneuver through a cramped limestone tunnels that wound through the earth like the path of a worm, first with arms, then shoulders, and finally legs. It would be much easier to push through the passage if it was just straight flat tunnel with no obstacles. Eventually, Kennedy reached the first dangerous part, reported as Keyhole Formation. Many believe that Robert, by making decision to push through this formation, made a fatal and irreversible mistake. After bending in an awkward position, the man managed to pass the keyhole compression, thinking he had accomplished something that most couldn't. Yet, he was unaware of the further few feet. As the passage widened and straightened slightly, Robert failed to realize that the narrow point he had just passed through head first would be impossible to negotiate in reverse with his legs first. Advancing a few feet, Robert suddenly found himself confronted with a narrowing passage, prompting him to reconsider his course of action by not taking a risk and return back. The man started crawling backwards with his legs first, but it was impossible to pass the keyhole compression without proper bending. After a few minutes of struggle, he changed his mind and decided to pass through the crevice in front of him, with a hope to find some sort of opening ahead to turn around. If only he had known that the passage ahead would narrow into an hourglass shape with a 30-degree downward angle. Already fatigued, Robert began squeezing into the opening, exhaling all the air from his lungs in an effort to pass through. After several strenuous pushes, he realized there was no way forward, yet his torso was already wedged tightly between the rock walls. To worsen matters, the bend had ensnared him, almost like a straitjacket, just below his ribcage, rendering his arms useless, one pinned beneath him, the other pushed backward by an outcropping of rock. Despite his efforts to push back, gravity seemed to conspire against him, pulling his body in the opposite direction. Understanding that his struggles only exacerbated the situation, Kennedy began to panic, calling out for Richard's help. It remains unclear exactly how long it took his stepbrother to enter the cave, given the extended waiting time outside. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, Richard made the decision to venture into the cave, guided by the faint glow of light from the entrance. Kneeling and screaming into the darkness, he sent a glimmer of hope coursing through Robert's body upon hearing his brother's voice. The trapped man yelled back, letting his brother know that he was wedged and needed help immediately because it was hard for him to breathe. Determined to assist his brother, Richard began to crawl blindly into the passage. Nevertheless, after only a few feet, he realized the ineffectiveness of his efforts without proper light. With hesitation, he told Kennedy that he has to leave the cave to call for help. After about an hour, a large team of 10 rescuers converged at the cave entrance, pooling their expertise to devise a plan of action. Several factors complicated their rescue efforts, chief among them the daunting distance of approximately 150 feet between Robert and the main passage. It proved to be a slow and arduous journey for each rescuer, with only one able to reach Kennedy at a time. Moreover, the rescuers grappled with difficulties in breathing as they ventured deeper into the cave, prompting the use of a ventilation system to circulate warmed air throughout the passageways. Assessment of Robert's underground location led to the grim realization that it was too deep for drilling a shaft. With limited options available, the rescuers resorted to using manual tools to widen the keyhole compression. Despite their best efforts, the emergency personnel understood that time was of the essence, and the thin line between life and death grew increasingly tenuous with each passing minute. Exhausted, the rescuers rotated shifts to conserve energy, but the task remained daunting. As hours ticked by, one rescuer observed Robert's condition deteriorating, noting a decline in his cooperation and the emergence of gurgling breaths, a troubling sign of potential suffocation. Finally, after excavating through the keyhole crevice, rescuers reached Robert's feet, though Kennedy was unresponsive at this point. The faint pulse detected in his legs instilled hope in the rescuers, spurring them on in their mission to save the desperate man. Attempting to pull Kennedy by his feet proved futile due to the lack of leverage. Even when considering a pulley system, the rescuers soon found that limestone and gypsum formations seemed to be too soft, compromising the integrity of the hooks under tension, so the idea was discarded. Their only viable option remained to dig around Robert's body, widening the hourglass compression and loosening his trapped body. The tightness around Robert's torso prevented the rescuers from even passing water to him. It seemed as though a ring of rock had encased him. It took over an hour for the rescuers to finally initiate movement in Kennedy's body. After a grueling 5-hour rescue operation, Robert was pulled out of the unnamed passage and brought back to the cave entrance. The paramedics were already waiting to assess his vital signs and transport him to the hospital, but unfortunately, it was too late. No signs of life were found. It is believed that a combination of suffocation from chest compression and low oxygen levels in the crawl contributed to rapid loss of consciousness and eventual death. Robert's first and final cave exploration turned into a struggle between life and death. imprinting itself into history as a clear reminder of the dangers hidden within dark, uncharted territories.